The Bilderberg Group is Europe's version of the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. Acting on behalf of the Committee of 300, Queen of England, specifically the Vatican and the Priory of Sion, French monarchy, Knight of Malta Dr. Joseph Hieronyme Rettinger plotted to forge alliances with the European Council of Princes, Dragon Court, the CIA, and Britain's MI6, by creating another New World Order think tank to be known as the Bilderberg Group. Interestingly, Dr. Rettinger's middle name is literally translated as member of the occult. Dr. Rettinger, founder of the European movement leading to the founding of the European Union, EU, approached Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands in 1952, who agreed to become its co-founder. Prince Bernhard presided over its first meeting at the Bilderberg Hotel, which it was named after, in Oosterbeek, Holland, from May 29 to May 31, 1954, and remained its chair until scandal forced him to resign in 1974. The Bilderberg Group has been meeting secretly behind closed doors at irregular intervals, once or twice each year since its formation. Its purpose is the same as the CFR, to remove independence from all countries and permit the aristocracy's tyrannical rule from behind the military might of the United Nations, UN. In the very early 1990s, just as the last vestiges of the Soviet Empire were crumbling into oblivion, a friend, member of the KGB counterintelligence apparatus during an intimate dinner told me of a very powerful and secretive organization known as the Bilderbergers. Behind this secret society is a contemporary network of powerful private merchant banking interests of medieval Venetian financier oligarchical model known as fondi. British and Dutch East India companies, the forerunners of the Council of the 300 and the Bilderbergers are examples of these private merchant banks. Their final objective is a post-industrial society. Actually, their real name is synarchists. Synarchism is used to define a new concept of political alliances by an international brotherhood of financiers and industrialists through a unity of the socialists and the anarchists on fascist principles. According to a top-secret 18-page French military intelligence report dated July 1941, summarizing a 100-page dossier on the French synarchist groups, the synarchist movement's aim is essentially to overthrow in every country where they exist the parliamentary regimes which are considered insufficiently devoted to the interests of these groups and, therefore, too difficult to control because of the number of persons required to control them. Therefore, it is not too difficult to understand that the intention behind each and all of the Bilderberg meetings is about how to create a synarchist aristocracy of purpose between Europe and the United States, and how to come to agreement on questions of policy, economics, and strategy in jointly ruling the world. The NATO alliance was their crucial base of operation and subversion because it afforded them the backdrop for their plans of perpetual war, or at least for their nuclear blackmail policy. Daniel Estiulin, source. It is essentially a private criminal enterprise which stretches across the globe, operating through a network of government agencies, private institutions and both publicly owned and private corporations and financial institutions. Now this extended network, which is called the Fondi, stretches all the way back to the Middle Ages. Again, the Fondi is the combined wealth of these oligarchical families. It is concentrated in your tangible things, land, oil, raw materials, precious minerals and metals. And by controlling the financial trade of these items, these family fathers set up fonds that are pooled together for maximum effect and deployed through a number of financial institutions, which hide their origins from the unsuspecting public. At the heart of the Fondi system, you have the powerful merchant private banks such as the Rothschild banks. And even more powerful than Rothschild is the Lazard Bank. One of the reasons that the Bilderbergers have never been able to discredit me is that historically I can show you that what today is called the Bilderberg Club can be traced back in time to the Venetian black nobility, 500 years ago. However, the idea behind these people hasn't changed since the beginning. It's the wholesale destruction of anything related and affiliated with the idea of a nation-state. The first nation-states were created in France under Louis XI and then in England with Henry VII. The idea behind the nation-state was the social welfare constitution, rights given to the people they had never had before. Before that we worked as slaves. For the first time we literally had something which we could call our own. It gave us the idea of the Constitution, which is again one of the things that these people have been so virulently fighting against. With nation-states, anything which was created, any technological advance which took place, created a need in other states in Europe to follow suit, otherwise they were left behind. That's called progress, and that's what the Venetians and the Bilderbergers of today have been so virulently against, which is again the whole thing about zero growth and the wholesale destruction of national, international economies. That's all part of what you're witnessing right now. Of course, you have the yabos who live in the world, the great unwashed. They have no idea what any of this stuff means because again their daily needs just are your basic primary, animal-like needs, which is exactly what these people want you to think about: work, procreate, eat and sleep. Daniel Estiulin, source. Again, another thing about the Bilderbergers is that I can trace who these people are today back to the Venetian black nobility. We often hear about the influences of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, but these people are merely your typical lackeys when you actually look at it. They are the bottom of the totem pole. If you're looking at the powerful people, you can talk about the House of Braganza, you talk about the House of Orange and the House of Habsburg. These people have unimaginable wealth. You measure it not in billions but in trillions of dollars. I have a document from the Krupp family of Germany. One banking statement, just one account on one day, and there's a $112 trillion on that account. That's the kind of money that the Bill Gates of this world. Well, they're not even lackeys. They are nothing, because again what they have is just pocket change for these people. One of the reasons that the Bilderbergers have never been able to discredit me is that historically I can show you that today what is called the Bilderberg group goes back in time to the Venetian black nobility, to the royal houses and lineages of the European oligarchical families. For example, talking about your queen, one such family is the Guelphs, from which Elizabeth II, the Queen of England, comes. I found reference to this family by cross-referencing with names like Ethico, Henry, Rudolph, and Azal. I found those references after spending more than 2.5 years in the National Library of Florence, literally living there, going through 500-year-old documents. Queen Victoria, she comes from the House of Est-Galf. The name Est comes from the name Marquis of Este of Venice, which is also known as the House of Albert Azal. Now this line is connected to the Welfs and can easily be traced back to the Cunigundas, Prince of Welf. So basically the Queen of England has Venetian roots, but also German roots because the Guelphs are intertwined with the German aristocracy through the House of Hanover, the Hanoverian English King George I. He came from the Duchy of Lüneburg, which have been governed by the Gauff family since the 12th century. Somewhat interesting, Prince Charles, the Queen's son, and Diana visited Venice on numerous occasions, not on any official business, but rather in a private capacity. I was told by someone very familiar with the British royal family that the Queen told Diana point-blank to never ever discuss these trips in public and, of course, Diana never did because I think she knew that the Queen meant it and she'd kill her if she ever did. So anyway, again, historically I can show you that what today is called the Bilderberg Group, 500 years ago was called the Venetian black nobility, but the idea behind what all these people put together hasn't changed. It's the wholesale destruction of anything related and affiliated with the idea of a nation-state. Daniel Estiulin. End.